He told me, at a dinner table full of our friends, that I had aged out of being relevant and that no one invests in a 38-year-old woman starting over. I remember the sound of the ice in his glass when he said it, the way it cracked. But let me back up, because none of this makes sense without knowing where I started. My name is Sloane Harrington. I'm from the Midwest, Indianapolis born and raised, and for most of my life, I was the dependable one, the steady one, the woman who didn't make waves. And this one is for the women who have ever been told, directly or indirectly, that your window has closed, that your best years are behind you, that you should be grateful for what you have, and stop reaching. Because I believed that once. I grew up in a family where there was one unspoken rule for the women: stability over ambition. My mom used to say it like it was scripture. A Harrington woman doesn't gamble. We secure. Secure meant marry practical. Secure meant pick a job with benefits. Secure meant don't embarrass the family by trying something flashy or risky. My dad ran a small commercial construction company. My brother, Owen, was groomed to take it over. I was encouraged to choose something reliable, so I became a nurse. Don't get me wrong, nursing is honorable and hard and sacred work. But I didn't choose it because it lit me up. I chose it because everyone nodded approvingly when I said it out loud. And then, there was my niece, Emma. The first time she appears in this story, she's 8 years old, sitting cross-legged on my kitchen floor while I Rooney and adore, frosting cupcakes for a hospital fundraiser. She had strawberry blonde hair in messy braids and this little gap in her teeth. "Aunt Sloane," she said, watching me pipe perfect swirls of buttercream, "why don't you have your own bakery?" I laughed. "Because I'm a nurse, Em. But you like this more. Out of the mouths of children, right?" I did like it more. I loved it. The smell of vanilla and browned butter. The way sugar melts into something glossy and alive. Baking felt like building something beautiful out of nothing. But baking was a hobby. Nursing was secure. At 26, I married Ryan Walker. He was charming in that easy Midwest way. Broad shoulders, confident smile, MBA, big plans. He worked in brand strategy for a mid-size marketing firm and loved to talk about positioning and relevance. We built a nice life. Brick house in Carmel, gray sectional. Weekend dinners with friends where we all brought wine that cost more than it should have. And quietly, I kept baking. At first it was for coworkers, then for friends' baby showers, then weddings. I started an Instagram page just for fun. Nothing serious. Just photos of cakes under soft window light. When Emma was 12, she came over one afternoon and helped me package custom cookie boxes for a small local order. She ran her finger along the edge of one of the boxes. "You could charge way more for these," she said, completely serious. I laughed again. "Sweetie, this isn't a real business." She frowned. "Why not?" That question stayed with me longer than I'd like to admit. If you've ever had a younger girl look at you like you're capable of more than you gub, like allowing yourself, you know how that hits, don't you? Drop a comment if you've ever felt that quiet pressure to be braver for someone watching you. By 35, my baking side hustle was bringing in almost half my nursing salary. I was exhausted all the time. 12-hour shifts at the hospital, then midnight frosting sessions in my kitchen. Ryan tolerated it. That's the word. Tolerated. He'd stand in the doorway, arms crossed. "It's cute, Sloane, but don't burn yourself out over cupcakes." They weren't cupcakes. They were structured, architected dessert designs. I'd started studying French pastry techniques online, laminated dough, sugar pulls. It was art. One night, after a particularly brutal shift in the ER, I came home to find 3 of my cake boxes crushed in the trash. He hadn't meant to. Or that's what he said. I needed space in the fridge. They looked done. And done. They were for a 200-person engagement party the next morning. I stood there staring at smeared buttercream against coffee grounds and leftover takeout. "I told you this was getting out of hand," he said. "You're not 25 anymore, Sloane. These little hobbies, they're for girls figuring themselves out." I swallowed so much in that moment. Anger, grief, humiliation. I remade everything from scratch overnight. Years of that. Quiet rebuilding, quiet swallowing. By 37, I had something real. A brand concept. Clean, elevated dessert design. Minimal. Sculptural cakes that didn't look like anything else in Indianapolis. I had a name. A logo. A plan to move into a small commercial space on Mass Ave. I showed Ryan the proposal one night after dinner. He skimmed it. Didn't even sit down. You want to quit nursing? At 38? Yes, he laughed. Actually laughed. Sloane, women in their 20s build brands. They're fresh. They're hungry. You're established. Established? A logo. Let's be honest. You've aged out of being relevant in that world. There it was. The ice cracking in his glass. No one at the table said anything. Not our friends. Not even me. Have you ever had someone shrink you publicly like that? Like your expiration date just got announced? Tell me I'm not the only one. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the glow of streetlights striping the room. Aged out. I thought about Emma. She was 16 then, starting to talk about colleges, about possibly studying design. But at a family barbecue that summer, I overheard my mom telling her, "Pick something stable. Honey, passion doesn't pay the mortgage." Emma's shoulders actually lowered when she nodded. That was the second time she appears here, not as the bold little girl in my kitchen, but as a teenager already folding herself smaller, and something in me cracked. Still, it took one more moment. At 38, on my birthday, Ryan handed me an envelope. Inside was information for a Women in Healthcare Leadership seminar. I figured this was more realistic, he said gently, like he was doing me a favor. Not a mixer for entrepreneurs. Not a small business workshop. A seminar to climb a ladder I didn't even want to be on. That night, Emma called me, crying. "I got into Pratt," she said, "for design. But Grandma thinks it's irresponsible. Dad says it's too expensive. Maybe I should just do accounting at IU." There it was. Third time. Her voice was small. The same small I'd learned. And I heard myself say, "Emma, if you don't go after what you actually want, you will wake up at 38 wondering where you went." There was silence on the line. "Aunt Sloane, did that happen to you?" "Yes." After I hung up, I opened my laptop. I filed for an LLC that night, Harrington Atelier. 2 weeks later, I met with a commercial realtor, without telling Ryan. 3 months after that, I signed a lease. Here's where the structural move comes in, the one that couldn't be undone. I used money from an investment account my grandmother had left solely in my name. Not marital funds, not joint savings, legally separate inheritance. Ryan was furious. "You're risking your future." "No," I said calmly. "I'm building it." We separated 6 months later. Not in some explosive way, just inevitability. The first year was brutal. I was the baker, marketer, delivery driver, accountant. I scrubbed floors at midnight, burned my hands on caramel, cried in the walk-in fridge more than once. But women started coming. Brides who said, "I've never seen cakes like this." Corporate clients who wanted something modern and bold. Food bloggers. By the end of that year, Harrington Atelier was named the fastest-growing boutique dessert brand in Indiana. At 39, and then came the return moment. Ryan's firm was hosting a massive rebrand launch for a national retail chain. Black tie event. Industry press. Influencers from Chicago flying in. 3 weeks before the event, their dessert vendor backed out. Guess who the new must-have name in the city was? I got the email inquiry from his assistant, Claire. I almost declined. Almost. Instead, I sent over a proposal triple my standard rate. Full creative control. 50% upfront. Non-negotiable. They signed within 24 hours. The night of the event, I walked into the ballroom of the Conrad Hotel in a tailored ivory suit. Not a baker's apron. Not scrubs. Ivory silk. Structured shoulders. The room smelled like peonies and expensive cologne. Crystal chandeliers casting warm gold light across navy table linens. My installation sat in the center of the room, a 12-foot dessert sculpture inspired by Midwest architecture. Sugar panels shaped like skylines, edible gold leaf catching the light, tiers of minimalist cakes in stone and pearl tones. People were already photographing it. Ryan stood near the bar when he saw me. He blinked, actually blinked. "Sloane?" he said, walking over slowly. "Wow, this is big." I smiled politely. "It's on brand." He glanced around. "You've done well." There was so much he didn't say in that sentence. During the program, the CEO thanked Harrington Atelier for redefining edible design in the Midwest. Applause filled the room. Loud, sustained. And then, this part still makes my chest tight, I saw Emma. She was there because she'd started interning with a small design firm that collaborated on the event visuals. Pratt had given her a scholarship after she submitted a portfolio. She ran up to me after the speech, eyes shining. "Aunt Sloane," she whispered, gripping my hands, You did it. You actually did it. Ryan was standing a few feet away. Emma turned slightly, not rude, just steady. You told me once not to shrink, she said. I didn't. I looked at her, at the room, at my name on the program printed in sleek black font, and in that moment I wasn't loud. I wasn't vindictive. I was undeniable. Ryan stepped closer. I may have underestimated you. I met his eyes. No, I said softly. You just defined me by your comfort. Silence. The kind that lands heavy. Have you ever had a moment where you didn't need to yell? Where your existence was the mic drop? Tell me, because those are my favorite kinds of victories. At the end of the night, as staff began clearing tables, I walked back to the dessert installation. I gently removed one small sugar panel shaped like the Indianapolis skyline. I had made an extra. I handed it to Emma. For your dorm room, I said. So you remember where you started. Not where they tried to keep you. She hugged me so tight I could feel her heartbeat. That sugar panel sits in a shadow box in my studio now, because yes, she gave it back to me after graduation and said, it belongs where it was built. And every time I look at it, I think about that sentence. Aged out of being relevant. Here's what I know now. At 41, relevance isn't about age. It's about refusal. Refusal to shrink. Refusal to expire on someone else's timeline. Refusal to let the next girl in line believe stability is the same thing as safety. If you are 25 and scared to start, start. If you are 35 and think you missed it, you didn't. If you are 38 and someone laughs at your dream, let them, and then build anyway. This is her untold revenge. If this story felt like it was written for you, subscribe. Share it with the woman in your life who's quietly baking something bigger than everyone thinks. And remember, we don't age out. We rise into it.